Go ahead.
All right. Well, good morning. My name is Justin McAdam. I'm the chair of the Distressed Unit Appeal Board. I am going to call this meeting to order and recognize that we do have a quorum here with us today. As I mentioned, we do still have a few members who may join us here as the meeting progresses, but I want to make sure we have time to get through our agenda. As is our custom, we will begin with public comment. And if you would like to provide public comment, please send a message to Courtney here either through the WebEx portal or otherwise, and let her know that you'd like to do that. Before we jump to that, our first order of business is the approval of our minutes. Everyone's had a chance to see the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any updates or corrections that need to be made to those minutes? All right. Well, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved, Rebecca.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Courtney, would you go ahead and call the roll?
Yes. Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
and Justin McAdam.
Yes.
5-0.
All right, minutes are approved. We'll now move to public comment. While Courtney gets that set up, we will have a timer here, and we would ask that commenters limit their comments to 3 minutes, and we'll give you a reminder as your time is winding down.
Okay, we actually, let me see here. Okay, let me switch this over. Okay, the first individual that I have for public comment is Robert Buggs. So Mr. Buggs, give me a second here and I will unmute you. Mr. Buggs, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, good morning. I sent y'all some information to compare since the takeover starting from 2011 through 2021. And I want you to pay particular attention to the IRE scores and the math scores. Compare 2016 to 2019 and 2021. Don't let them tell you about the scores for 2020 because we had the pandemic. The other thing is we want to know what happened, how many students took the test, how many students passed the test, what happened to the students that did not pass the test, were they identified, where are they, what kind of plan is in place to address those students' needs. I also want to know how many students logged in online during the Chrome season and how many actually logged in online, how many special population students that actually graduated this year. We asked all of these questions, but we never get any answers from anybody. So this is the only way we can get it. We also want to know, we've had 3 emergency managers, 3 CAOs, 3 CFOs, and 3 school principals changes within 3 years. There's no continuity. Why is that? We try to get these answers from Mr. Parrish, but he doesn't come to Gary. He doesn't communicate with the advisory board at all. So we have a lot of questions. There's no transparency whatsoever as far as the advisory board is concerned. So we need to know who do we go to get those answers. Now, I was elected by 15,254 people. I'm not bragging, but those 15,254 people expect me to have an answer for them because I was elected to look out for the best interests of their students and the parents. We have no transparency whatsoever. We can't get our questions. I was put in a request for information the 25th of February. To this day, they have not complied with my request for public access to information. These things are very troubling to the advisory board. We seem to be just left out of everything. And you got to understand that we live in this city. These are our children. And we got people making decisions of our children that don't live in this city. And they are rewarding the people that are causing these bad grades and declines You're giving them bonuses saying they're doing a good job, but they're not doing a good job. What more do we have to do as citizens and the people that elect me to represent the people that I was elected to represent, to get them an answer? This is not right. We've been trying to explain this to you all forever. So we need to know. I want you all to explain that that graph that document that I sent you, Mr. Mike Adams provided with you all. Look at the grades from 2016, 2019, and 2021. How the drastic steady decline every year, and also why we have, and I don't want to be repetitive, but we have these changes every year. 3 emergency managers, 3 CFOs, 3 principals. There is no continuity. There's a direct correlation between a child that cannot read by the 3rd or 4th grade, that's going to prison, going to drop out of school, end up on welfare, or in the criminal justice system. There's a direct correlation. And if you look at those scores, you will see that's exactly where they're headed. And we can't get any answers, and we need some answers. But you all are giving these people that's causing this a reward and saying they're doing a good job, and they are not. They are not. So what do we do? These are this a whole generation of children, black children, brown children, and some white children in Gary, Indiana, that are failing, and you all are rewarding, aiding and abetting them, and we keep telling you over and over again, it's not working, it's not working. We also want to know how many people logged into that Chromebook during the Chromebook season, how many actually logged in. They won't tell us that. So see if y'all can ask those questions this morning. I certainly would appreciate it. I didn't get everything in. I was trying to talk fast. I got thousands of things, but thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Buggs. All right. I do have one other individual who has indicated they'd like to provide comment. I think that he may be on a telephone. Let me see. Senator Charbonneau, is this you?
It's me. Can you
Hi.
hear me okay?
Hi there. Yes, we can.
Okay. I appreciate the and I didn't even know if it was appropriate for me to take part in this meeting, but I'm up in Minnesota on vacation, and I joined the WebEx meeting, but somehow I got screwed up with that. So, but anyway, I just felt that it was time for me to make a comment, and this just seemed like an appropriate forum to do it. I am a graduate of Gary Emerson High School, and I grew up in Gary and still consider myself part of Gary because I lived there a large part of my life. And I lived through some pretty great times when I was in school, and then watched as the Gary public school system just totally deteriorated, and everything that could go wrong seemed to be going wrong with the Gary schools. I worked for U.S. Steel Corporation. We paid a whole lot of attention to property taxes that we paid, and got to the point where we were paying $1 million a day in property taxes. And at the same time, the student population in the Gary school system was cut in half. After they lost half their students, never closed a building during that time. So I lived through a lot of it, and I just feel compelled to comment right now on what I see, at least from what I read in the paper and what I have been able to pick up, the remarkable, I guess I'll call it a comeback, in what is going on in the Gary public school system. We went from 8 or 9 schools down to 1. In that one now, Gary West Side, the school system is now part of the community there. There are so many good things happening, but I'd like to focus, if I could, just for a minute on sports. Because I played sports in high school, so I've always paid attention to it. And what is going on at West Side with sports is incredible. And just two quick stories. I think it was 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, West Side had an outstanding basketball player that was being recruited by a Division I schools, and suddenly found out he didn't have enough credits to graduate from high school. Fast forward to this last season, where every one of the seniors on the West Side basketball team has a scholarship that has been recruited by colleges and will be going to college. That speaks volumes for what is going on with the educational system at the school. And I think another thing, just the fact that Gary West Side was able to host the sectionals for the basketball tournament this year is another remarkable accomplishment, because a few years ago, you wouldn't find many schools that would be willing to come into Gary to play. And not only did they come and play, it was a tremendous event. And from what I understand, there were nothing but accolades from the competing schools with the way that it was handled at by West Side. As I said, they're part of the community at this point in time. They've been able to pass a referendum, and I could go on, but I know I'm limited to 3 minutes, and I apologize for just kind of popping up and saying something, but I got word that I guess these are monthly meetings, and I would certainly be glad to spend a lot more time with some of you just talking about my perceptions and what I see going on here. And it is because of some very blunt, very respectful leadership that is in place at the school. And there are hard decisions that are being made, but they're being made and followed through on. And I'll stop there. Again, and hard decisions are being made. I would like to see Gary Emerson come back. I've been told that is not in the cards. Forget about it, Ed. I have not been told yet to get over it, but life goes on. So with that, I appreciate your time. Again, I fully support, 100% support what is going on with the Gary Community School System. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Senator Charbonneau. We're very grateful for you taking the time to speak with us today. We're always appreciative when we have the opportunity to speak with members of the legislature.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. That was the last individual that I had signed up for public comment.
All right. Well, thank you all for sharing your comments, Mr. Buggs and Senator Charbonneau. We will move to our next item on the agenda, which is a report from Courtney regarding some contracts that she has approved since our last meeting.
Okay, let me just get there. Okay, yes, I have 3 contracts that I have approved since the last meeting. The first contract that I have here is for Crisis Prevention Institute. It was for some nonviolent crisis intervention training. This training was to be paid out of IDEA Part B special education funds. Total amount was for $44,388, with the goal of the training being to certify individuals at the local level that then could provide additional training to other staff members. The second contract approval that I have done, this one is a touch unique in that the contract is actually with from FACS Education Solution, providing services to Andrean High School, which is in Maryville. Andrean is a non-public school corporation that does have Gary students who attend that particular school corp. And so based on the way that Title I funds have to flow, those dollars come into Gary Schools, and Gary Schools actually administers those contracts, but the services themselves are being provided by Andrean. So this particular contract is intended to be paid out of Title I-A funds, providing certain services to students that are within the Gary Schools boundaries but attend Andrean School. And that total contractual amount was $103,907. And then the last contract that I have here is a contract with Education Resource Strategies. Gary Community Schools has been selected to be a participant in a strategic planning consortium. They were selected by the Indiana Department of Education. As part of that consortium, they will work with 5 other school corporations in Indiana, and then they have also had this consultant assigned to them. The goal of this is to have the consortium will work together to really vision and prioritize the spending of the recent federal stimulus dollars. The contract itself with the consultant will actually be paid through a grant that will be provided to Gary Schools as a participant in this consortium. So DOE will provide the grant to Gary Schools, and then they will use that money to pay for this consultant. And total cost on this is $110,000. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments for Courtney?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Or maybe a question or comment, but I'm assuming that these types of contracts are common within K through 12 corporations, school corporations throughout the state. And I mean, if they are, do we or have we at Gary done a study and compared to what the cost is for the same programs at other school corporations in Indiana?
Are there particular contracts that you are talking about of the 3 that I talked about?
All of the above.
The above. Okay.
I mean, I would think, and maybe DOE could, talk to this. Is this something that, because I'm sure this is done in all school corporations, I hope. And if it is, I just kind of want to make sure that we're getting the same rate and service that they're getting.
Sure. Either Dr. McNulty or Nathan, would either of you two like to speak to that?
Yeah,
Nathan, go ahead, Nathan.
Okay. Yes, I can handle it, Paul. So for the ERS contract, Educational Resource Strategies, that price was negotiated directly between DOE and the vendor. And the vendor was selected for Gary by DOE. So we put in our preferences, our needs, and DOE did the matchmaking process for us. The Crisis Prevention Institute, CPI, yes, that is a nationally recognized entity. And the price that they quoted us for Gary is consistent with what they publicly market to others, and in other roles that I've used them in the past, similar pricing there as well. The fax contract, the one that Courtney mentioned, was quite unique. I don't know many of those contracts that have come before DUAB because of how unique that is. But as Courtney mentioned, Gary has a legal responsibility to administer equitable services for non-public schools. And so it is common for certain non-public schools to prefer certain vendors, but we still do the normal procurement process of getting bids, making sure that we're getting, because that Title I-A contract is held to the simplified procurement threshold required under the Uniform Grants Guidance. And so we did do our normal procurement processes with federal funds to make sure that even though a vendor might be preferred, we still want to make sure that we get the best bang for our buck.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could expand on, or ask Nathan to expand on his answer there. So what sources, what resources, or what sources do you use to make sure you get the most bang for your buck?
Right. So anytime a contract is under 150,000, which is our state statute for the RFP, then we do solicit at least 3 vendors. And so okay. Okay, I'll stop there.
Yeah. So you did that process, and so could you speak to the similar question that Paul had, only to the paving and concrete contract? Similar process?
Yes.
Yes. No?
Yeah. Now with the paving contract, because it was well over 150,000, then we did do a request for proposal in order to formally solicit vendors that had the opportunity to bid.
So I don't want to put my I don't want to put Tracy on the spot, but Tracy, does the Department of Education use DOA QPAs as well? Is that option available to schools?
That's a good question, Wes. I can't speak to that. I don't know if Paige and Nathan could. Obviously, we as a state agency do, but I'm not sure if that extends to the local school level.
Okay.
Right.
Do you know that, Nathan?
Right. Yeah. So there are certain items that we absolutely take advantage of the QPA. With the paving contract, to my knowledge, no. Because that is unique.
There may not be one available.
Right. QPA is more for consistent type of things like school buses, certain technology that are going to be uniform across the state. We all need the same kind of school bus. We all need, similar type of technology. Paving's so unique for our location that really did need a unique come out. You need to look at our site, which we did have those vendors come out and do walkthroughs to make sure that they were clear on what we needed so that we did get the best price, an accurate price when they submitted to us.
Good. Thank you.
Since we're talking about paving, how does your paving cost compare to costs at other parts of the state? Or we're doing it by square foot, and come in and do it 2 inches thick. I get that it's probably not that unique, to be honest with you. It's probably like a school bus. You either rip it up and put it down. So paving's not that unique. So how is that cost compared to what other places are paying? Regardless of your 3 bids, forget about those. But how does it compare?
Is it okay if I introduce, when we get to that point on the agenda, Mr. Joyce, our facilities director, because I think he's got all the answers for you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I would have got there anyway.
If we could, why don't we hold on diving too deep into the paving and asphalt conversation? We will obviously have a contract to come back to, so if we could hold that, we'll come back to that.
That's good with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding these 3 contracts that Courtney approved in the interim?
Mr. Chairman, do you want to take those each on their own, or can we combine those into one motion?
Yeah, so the way those work is they're within Courtney's threshold that we have delegated to her. I believe it's contracts under 250,000, and so she has the authority from this board to approve them on her own. And so she's just reporting to us that she has done that.
So there's no need for a motion.
That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, if there's no other questions regarding that, we'll go ahead and move on. Dr. McNulty.
Actually,
Courtney, go ahead.
Circle back for a second. It appears that we have encountered a little bit of technical changes with the WebEx app. And so for those who are using the WebEx app, in order for them to actually contact me to let them know that they need to chat or they wanted to provide a public comment, they need to actually select my name as host and then send that directly to me. That is a change from where we have been previously, so I apologize for that. I have been informed that there is an attendee who is on the WebEx app who would like to provide public comment if we're open to that.
Yeah, yes, please. Let's, we don't want to penalize people for technical difficulties. Please, let's go ahead and have them speak.
Okay, and then just for anyone else who is viewing the meeting via the WebEx app, if you are interested in providing comment, what you need to do is go up to the little person up in the upper right-hand corner, click on that. That will list all of the different participants. And then you'll want to select on my name, Courtney Skofsma, select my name, and then down at the bottom, there will be a chat option. You can hit the chat option, and then that will send a message directly to me in order to allow you to let me know that you are interested in speaking. So let me real quick get this flipped back around. Oh, actually, I can't. I'm just going to keep timing on my phone because I've already cut off the timer on my other computer. So give me 1 second here. We have Ms. Nina Burton. Ms. Burton? Ms. Burton, are you there? Hi there, we can hear you. Ms. Burton?
Hello.
Hi there. We can hear you, so please go ahead and provide your comment.
I apologize. I am moving around, but felt it very important to come onto the board meeting and speak as a current parent. My husband and myself, we have 4 students in the Gary Community School Corporation. We graduated 1 student last year. So we're very actively involved and concerned about our school and our school system and what it does offer and what it should be offering and what it can offer. In regards to the extended school day, we are speaking in favor of the extended day as if it's going to be directly beneficial in the form of more access to supports, curriculum development, and even the social emotional part. I believe that was being proposed. So I did just want to speak in favor of the extended school day for our students. They deserve the best, and if this is an option for them, I believe we should go for it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your comment. Okay, that should be everybody then. I have not received any other messages from anyone on WebEx app indicating they wanted to speak. So
okay,
thank you for
Courtney.
circling back on that.
Yes, well, and our apologies for the technical difficulties there to those who tried to contact us.
Yes, WebEx keeps changing things on me here, so.
I noticed it's a different color today, so I'm getting used to everything here. Okay, so our next item of business is the update from the manager for Gary Community School Corporation. We have Dr. McNulty with us today. Dr. McNulty.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy to be here. Happy to see everybody.
Likewise.
Thanks. I'm very excited to be able to present and report on several things that are happening within the district. I'll sit back. I'm not in my office today, so I'm in a different venue. So I'm trying to get used to the screen that I'm using. I'm borrowing the office of our CTE director today because we are here doing training on restorative justice, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes. And so I wanted to step out and make sure to be able to do this meeting. But we've had a robust 7 days. This completes our 7th day of training and professional development with all of our principals and assistant principals. We've had a fabulous time together of very robust conversations and lots of planning for next year that I'm extremely excited about. And as we've been concluding our 7 days together, I was telling the principals that I was going to step out to do this meeting on Friday, and they said we'd like to be able to tell them how the week went. So I told them that I thought that would be okay. I'm going to let them come in and introduce themselves, and you guys need to hear from them as opposed to me. So if you can give them 2 minutes, that would be great.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Neal.
There you go.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. My name's Angela Grayson. I'm really excited. I'm kind of short. I don't know if you can see me. But I am assistant principal at Beveridge Elementary School, and this is my 3rd year back with the district. I've been here previously as a teacher, maybe about 10 years ago. And I just wanted to come on just really briefly to explain how excited and how blessed I feel about the workshop and the events that have occurred last week and this week. Last week for me, the book study that we engaged in, Leverage Leadership, was a gap filler for us. We have done data dives previously, but this new approach that Dr. McNulty and her team has given us, it allows us to be a lot more intentional with our students and our teachers to engage them in a process of assessing, of analysis, and of actionable steps. And this, I believe, has been the missing component in previous years when I was with the district. This approach allows for everyone to be engaged and fully monitored so that the challenge that has been placed before us unequivocally, we can now make sure that we fulfill those challenges in that. So I'm really excited and really appreciative to face those challenges for this year. So again, thank you. And we are definitely looking forward to this school year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Chaitra Wade.
Morning.
I'm principal at Banneker Elementary at Marquette. This is my 9th year with the district, and I am really excited about the professional development that we had last week. What I took away from it was the component of the professional learning community. So we talked about the PLCs and how we would incorporate those as a district, not just individual schools doing their own thing or individual teams within the school, but making the schools themselves a professional learning community. So I'm super excited about this year and what we're going to do in our buildings, but collectively as a district. So thank you for having me.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tanisha Banks, and I'm originally from Indianapolis Public School. I'm entering into my 2nd year with the district. Last week's training not only provided us with a practical framework to strengthen our PLCs and our data meetings with our staff, but it also provided us with the tools necessary to strengthen our parental involvement and engagement within our schools. So with that, I am very excited and optimistic about next school year, and I'm really looking forward to what it will bring us. I know great things will be happening this school year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Banks.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shelly Martin. I'm the director of the Gary Area Career Center, and I am excited about this school year that's coming. We had an awesome time at the conference. What I took from the conference was the support that we are receiving from Dr. McNulty and her team. just support so that we are able to have strategies so that we can support our teachers in our buildings. We walked away with a lot of nuggets that we can do in our buildings. We are working together so that we can educate the whole child, not only in the core academic area, but also in the CTE area. So I'm just excited about what next year is going, well, this coming year is going to bring. You know, the best is yet to come.
Thanks, Shelley.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least,
Good morning, everyone. I am Brandy Harib, and this is my 6th year being the administrator with the Gary Community School Corporation. And last week's professional development delivered by our district leadership was by far the best professional development delivered over the years. And the district leadership truly articulated the vision of excellence for our building leaders, students, and staff through the week's collaborative workshops. We are excited, enlightened, and motivated to move our schools to the next phase of learning as a community. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning, and God bless you.
Thank you very much.
so that's 5 out of 20 that we met with last week. Whoops, I'm gonna try to get this camera back again. But I just, again, thought it was important that you, first of all, see the faces of some of our principals and get to know them a little bit better and hear what they have to say, because it's important, I think, to sometimes hear from other people than just me. We're finishing up today, as I mentioned, with restorative justice. And restorative justice is a practice that we're putting into place this school year for our SRO officers. Can you close that one yet? SRO officers, our teachers, our administrators, everybody. It's a kind of walk the walk instead of just talk the talk. And what that means is we are training everybody how to talk to students differently, how we talk to our colleagues differently. If students have a problem, we're going to be doing peer mediation. Students will be trained in the fall on peer mediation so that they can help resolve their own issues. We're going to be doing anger management groups. We'll be doing girls group, that type of stuff, so that we can also help with the social emotional piece as well. So we've had, again, 7 great days of training, and I'm very excited with the participation of all the administrators, and I think they did a fabulous job. So thank you for allowing me to present that, because I think it was important. I also want to say that we had our first referendum ambassador committee meeting. As you might have remembered, I had invited people to apply. We had about 71 or 2 people apply for this referendum ambassadors committee meeting. And after they all applied, we decided to take them all. If we have 70 some people that want to be actively engaged in our school district, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't all be allowed to come. So we decided to invite them all. We ended up having about 45 people that showed up for our first night of training. The first night was a school budget 101 class, if you will, where we talked about all the different pots of money and how it's able to be utilized, talked specifically about the referendum dollars and what the committee's charge was as far as being ambassadors. Now that we've received in our first payment, our first amount of this week, which Nicole will talk about here in a little bit, our second meeting will be July 12th. And that committee is going to break up into subcommittees based on their areas of interest and preference that we gave them. And they're going to start talking about some suggestions or recommendations that they can give back to us as a group moving forward. So again, what it's turned out to be is more of a community-wide PTA meeting, which is wonderful. Everybody who came to the referendum ambassadors meeting is there for the right reasons. They're very positive, productive, and want to help the school district. So I want to thank everyone who showed up and thank the community for being so actively involved. It was a huge success. As we mentioned, we've applied and have been awarded the Strategic Planning Consortium monies, and I'll let Nathan speak to that here in a second. And we did receive $125,000 to support these efforts, and we will be working in collaboration with some other districts around Northwest Indiana and the DOE to help us talk about innovative ideas on how we can use our ESSER funds going forward down the road. Also, we were very excited to be able to host an in-person graduation at Westside finally. We did host it on our football field, and the track had just been finally done. So the track and the football field looked wonderful. We had a couple hundred students graduate. We had wonderful guest speakers. We had a huge outpouring of the community that came and watched the graduation outside. So it was a wonderful event. If you missed it, we do have it posted on our website if you want to go back and watch the ceremony. It was a great, great day. So congratulations to our graduates. We did have 10 students that I want to highlight, not our only 10, but 10 that did receive scholarships through Boeing. These scholarships were awarded during a virtual signing scholarship presentation. The mayor and I both presented, as well as many other people from around the community. All of our students who received the scholarship are going to be pursuing degrees in a variety of science and math disciplines. So we're very proud of them. That's in addition to the other students who have received scholarships through the Urban League, the Gary Educational Foundation, etc. We've just had a lot of students receiving scholarships this year. So we're excited on the uptick of that and for the opportunities that affords our students moving forward. As I've mentioned, we have been in the middle of an audit through SBOA. We are just concluding that. We're finishing up some of our exit interviews. And once those results are finalized, we will look forward to presenting those to DUAB and to the community. I do anticipate good results from that audit, Mr. Joyce. So we look forward to being able to move forward and share those results in the near future. We are also in the process of updating all of our policies within the district. Our policies are really, really outdated by 10, 20 years in some cases. So we have are working currently with Neola, which is the company that helps most school districts around the state to help us get our policies up to date. We have thousands of policies that we're going through this summer. Each district director has been charged with looking through each department and plugging in the pertinent information that as it pertains to our district. Then we'll get back together as a group and finalize those. We're hoping to have that done by the end of August so that we're ready to go for the school year. But we are in the process of updating those, which are very outdated and a task that's desperately needed. And then lastly, I did want to talk about the addition of the instructional hour to the day, but I'd like to hold that as it is an agenda item for later on in the meeting, if that's okay. Okay.
Yes, please. That's fine.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Any feel for how referendum revenue is coming in? I know we're just getting into the collection season. So what does that look like?
Yeah, we do. And so I know Nicole was going to speak to that if is she on the?
I am. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll provide you guys a brief update. I know you guys have been eagerly waiting, and so have I. The funds were deposited on the 26th, so just a few days ago. For our referendum, our first distribution was approximately $5.1 million. This was about 41% of our net levy. And then I just wanted to update you briefly on the other funds as well. Our debt service fund, we received it in $5.9 million approximately, which was 40% of the net levy. And then the operations fund, about $2.3 million, which was actually 52% of the net levy. So in general, we've seen higher collections this spring disbursement than we have in years past, which is good news. I'm optimistic that hopefully we'll have similar percentages for our December settlement, but that's obviously based on property tax collections. So I look forward to kind of presenting some more of this information in our upcoming meetings as I update cash flows and our budget versus actuals.
That's great. Thank you, Nicole. That's good news. So the 5.1, did I hear you correct? It's 5.1 million for the referendum so far?
Correct.
So if the same collection percentage held firm into the next tranche, we'd be at 10.2. We might expect. So that's great. That's great.
Hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, everyone. This is Eddie Melton. Sorry, I'm a little late. Just had a couple of questions, if possible.
Please.
Yeah. With the collection rate, what is that percentage? I think I might have missed that piece. What's the percentage of the collection rate?
So for the referendum fund specifically?
Yes, ma'am.
That was about 41% of our net levy.
Okay, got it. And this might be for other folks on the team. Can you just provide a little clarity to some of the folks in the community that might not be sure how the funds will be used as they come in? I know there's been a lot of miscommunication or understanding about the usage of referendum dollars. I think it's a good opportunity just to kind of hear the district's plan again, just the fund.
Sure, absolutely. So our first million went to teacher raises that were effective January 1 of this year. So those are the only funds that have been spent for the referendum dollars. That leaves about a $7.9 million in our budget. And that's kind of what this referendum ambassador group is going to be focusing on. Different committees based on those ballot questions, safety, extracurricular, preschool, different subcommittees of what those dollars can be used for going forward for the rest of this year.
Got it. Now, is that going towards their base, or is that kind of just like more of a stipend?
No, it went towards their base.
All right, great.
It was approximately about a 5% increase for their base.
Got it. No, I appreciate it.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes, Wes.
Nicole, I feel like I should know this answer, but I'm trying to figure out why why Gary had a 41% collection on their referendum, right? Is it?
So I don't have any historical information, as I think we touched on a couple meetings ago. Courtney and I had mentioned why there are such a difference in the overall collection rates from the different funds. So our operations fund is more of like a as of end of 2020, it was 93% collection rate, where the debt service fund was about a 75% collection rate. So because I don't have any historical information for the referendum, it's just the 41% against our net levy. So our levy minus our circuit breaker.
And I think if I remember correctly, you said that there was a 51 or 52% collection on your maximum on your operating levy. Is that right? I'm trying to figure out why there's a 10% difference here.
Yeah, it actually, so last year for our mid collection rate of 2020 in operations, we collected 40%. So we collected 52%. So it was a 12% increase in our mid-year collections. Now, I'm not sure historically of why that would be. It could be that in December, we may see a much lower collection rate, which will kind of balance out to that, 90-some%. Or it could be higher. It just kind of depends on the rate that the citizens pay property taxes and what's being collected.
Okay. I've got a couple other questions, Mr. Chairman, if I may, getting off of the referendum collections and levy collections. But going back to the ambassadors, you mentioned that the next meeting is in July. Characterize, if you would, Dr. McNulty, how long did your last meeting last? And how did you handle 40 plus members on a committee?
Sure. So our meeting was approximately an hour and a half long. And so what we did was we had a PowerPoint. Well, first we introduced ourselves, everybody did. We kind of laid the ground rules. I ran it like I would run a principals meeting, to be honest with you. I had the group talk about the norms that they wanted the meeting to adhere to, like being respectful, turning your cell phone off, that type of stuff, be a positive listener. And we developed those together as a team. And then we talked about what is the purpose of the referendum ambassador committee meeting, and what we want to have happen with the meeting and the outcomes. And we had a good conversation. And then Nicole and several of my colleagues and myself presented the budget and answered questions to the group. We also gave them an agenda, of course, and then we gave them a card to fill out with the 5 questions that were the 5 areas that we were raising the revenue for the referendum on the card, and asked them to fill in what committee they would like to be on going forward, which they did and turned in, and then we've put them into groups. But it was I thought went really well. There was no hiccups at all.
Good. And another topic. Where are you with the status of rebidding on the property insurance?
Yeah, so we did put that out for an RFQ. I'm not sure I'm saying the right word. And we have received a couple of those in. They're being reviewed right now, and we'll be ready to present those at the next DUAB meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. McNulty, as we look into next school year, where do things stand in terms of plans for back to school and getting the kids back in the classroom?
We can't wait. We're so excited to be open full-time to all students. So I am shouting it from every mountaintop here in the city that we are open for business. We hope and expect all students to come back in person in the fall because we know that's where they need to be for the best learning to take place. I met again with our teachers union yesterday, who are also very excited and anxious to have students back in front of them. So yeah, we're open for business. We want all of our students to come back to us. We are planning on having a very small option for virtual learning for those students who might need it, who might have some medical issues or that type of thing, but that's going to be a small percentage of students. Otherwise, we expect all of our students to come back.
That's fantastic. How are you handling, a lot of schools now, based on the guidance from the governor, are grappling with how to handle masks and how to handle, health protocols. How are you guys going through that process? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, we had a good conversation about that actually last week with the principals. So we are waiting for the latest guidance to come out, but at this point we are going to make masks optional is what we're talking about. Certainly if someone wants to wear their mask, we're going to allow them to wear their mask. We will still be providing PPE as well, but masks will be optional. And Nathan, I know you've been working with the nursing department, if you want to speak a little bit more to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're still going to keep, positive health practices in place, even though masks are optional. So still having hand sanitizers, still emphasizing hand washing, emphasizing, parents to keep their kids home when they have fevers and doing those pre-checks before they would come to school. We're also we have our registration fair July 27 through 29, and part of that is having a lot of vendors in, which one will be the health department. So we're going to be promoting the vaccines, not just for COVID, but our immunizations as well. We've had on-site vaccination fairs at Roosevelt and for our other students. And then we're also going to have a community health clinic in our high school for the first time that our staff have access to, our students have access to try and reduce any kind of issues of having to not attend school, and then community members can access it as well. We also have participated in the training to do the real-time on-site demand COVID testing so that if there was a concern, we can test kids immediately and then make sure that we're reducing the amount of time that we have to quarantine kids or send kids home. But we were very, very pleased with how the spring went with our schools. We had very few cases that we ended up having to quarantine kids. Families were doing a good job of communicating with us. So we look forward to that trend continuing.
Have you got any feedback from?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Well, I was going to ask about whether you got any feedback from the community just about those plans or the fall.
Yeah, we did do, we've done 2 surveys and, certainly I think that there was hesitation when we first opened up. I think you remember we only had about 50% of our students who did return back when we did open up. That's getting stronger. We've got lots of students in summer school this summer, over 1,000 today actually, which is great. So I think that as the vaccinations have gone forward and people are getting vaccinated and things are loosening up, that people are feeling more comfortable. But we did do 2 surveys, and the overwhelming results were that families are ready to send their kids back to school.
Yeah, fantastic.
I had a question about vaccinations. Are you requiring that the teachers and the staff be vaccinated, or is that an optional?
Yeah, we're not allowed to
No.
require that. I'm sorry, Nathan.
Okay,
But we are strongly encouraging it.
okay.
And we have certainly set up lots of opportunities for them to get vaccinated here within our district and within the community, and we'll continue to do that. We're working closely with several of the health clinics, so we're going to open it and have them come back to our middle schools as we move forward so that those 12-year-olds and older can get vaccinated along with the staff if they haven't had the opportunity to do so. But we definitely are strongly encouraging it.
All right, thank you.
Dr. McNulty, going back to this back to school theme, I've been hearing and reading several articles about chronic absenteeism. Is that where does Gary Community Schools stand with that in that regard? And if it's a problem, which I think it is, and it's not just at Gary, it's across the nation, from what I'm reading. What do we need to do about it?
Yeah, so I think, as you have been reading and as we have all experienced, the virtual on-learning fatigue was real and it was difficult last year, no question about it. So we know that there were some students that were absolutely chronically absent during the virtual learning. We were sending and deploying out our social workers and our SRO officers on a regular basis to those red level kids, if you will, that were missing in action and trying to locate them and get them actively engaged. But what I can tell you is moving forward, as we've been opening now and having summer school, kids are really anxious to come back to school and see each other and be engaged. And I think that they're hearing of all the new things that they're going to be able to participate in that they haven't had in the past, such as Science Bowl and Spelling Bowl and all the other clubs that we're offering going forward in the fall, and the sporting programs, etc., that kids are excited. That's what I'm hearing and seeing, and I think that that's going to help a lot.
So do you think that this virtual environment was a large part of the reason for the chronic absenteeism?
I absolutely do.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions for Dr. McNulty?
Yeah, Dr. McNulty, I do, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
In our last meeting, Ms. Tatum talked about Roosevelt High School, and where are we at on that school? What process is it in right now?
Well, we're still looking and actively looking for a potential buyer that would be somebody that's got a proposal that they can submit that would be a positive opportunity for the community that would preserve its historical nature. So we have received a couple in the past, and we're still actively pursuing and looking for someone that might have that proposal that they'd be able to send us. But right now, nothing's happening with Roosevelt.
I think, okay, I'm moving on from that one, which is good. I mean, I just wasn't sure where we were at exactly with that one.
We've explored lots and lots and lots of ideas, so we're still exploring those.
Right. I can understand. It's a big asset and liability. Let's talk about liabilities. We were going to work on rebidding the insurance. Have we moved on to doing something like that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we just did the RFP, and so we do have a couple of proposals that are in, and we are reviewing them, and we'll be ready to present those at the next.
Okay, that's when we'll look at them. Okay. And in your packet you gave out in one of the early questions and answers, it showed where you had sold one of the buildings to the city. Somebody was wanting it mowed, which, yep, city needs to mow it. Where are we at with other property sales? How do we have interest in them?
We do. I get calls probably weekly almost for, I think we have 6 left. They are posted on our website, the 6 that are left, and I do get calls on a regular basis. And so people do, are submitting proposals, and we will continue to pursue those if they're viable options moving forward. And I anticipate they'll have a couple more sold here this year.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Joyce, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so I had a little technical difficulty there. Circle back to Roosevelt real quick. What Dr. McNulty said is right. We're pursuing every option. We're in a partnership with Indiana Landmarks, which has a network and their sole purpose is to save and restore, redevelop historic buildings. So the partnership has been helpful. Through Indiana Landmarks, we have met with the City of Gary and the Gary Housing Authority, and we have another meeting scheduled for later this month. What's significant about that is if you look at not just the Roosevelt property, but you look at the surrounding area, there's some public housing that's been taken down recently and is slated for some redevelopment. And so if we can combine our efforts, the city and the housing authority, to look at that holistically rather than individually, there's an opportunity there to bring this forward. We thought we had a viable partner that does redevelopment of historic buildings. They're very credible, and they do this across the country, but unfortunately it didn't progress. The building was too big, and the tax credits were too small to make that a viable option. Then out of this next meeting with the city and Gary Housing Authority, I've committed to funding through Gary Schools a small market analysis that will help the folks that are credible, experienced redevelopment companies have a document that they're used to seeing that we haven't provided in the past that was created in joint coordination with the city and Gary Housing Authority.
Yeah, Lake County has some of the in Crown Point, the old courthouse, which has been reutilized, it's a beautiful old courthouse. And they really do bring back some and revitalize those and bring them back as part of the community. And so I think they have a lot of great things up there to look at and see how things can be revitalized and brought back. So at least, maybe not to their current, original purpose, but, it'd be repurposed for, use by the community.
Yeah, can I make a comment real quick along those lines what Paul was saying? I think looking at options and opportunities to partner, collaborate, to your point, Eric, that is a huge facility. I know in the discussions we've had in the past, a lot of the folks that I know that had an interest had the concern of the size and the amount of resources that it would take to repurpose that building. Right. So if there were opportunities or within the RFP process to figure out ways to partner with the city, housing authority, and the district on a project and not just solely making it a developer or an investor coming in, making the total investment, I think we probably would see more traction there. So that was just a comment I wanted to make. The next question I have goes back to on the COVID piece, and it's great. I'm excited that the students are getting ready to go back full time. Do we see any issues from a communication perspective with parents when it comes down to recruitment, when it comes down to communicating school reopening, bus routes, and just things like that because of COVID? I know because of that, there may have been hiccups and issues in years past. So I was just curious, do we foresee COVID impacting further communication?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And I would say that that might have been more of a concern in the past, but because of COVID, it actually has had the opposite effect. Our parents are now much more attuned to tuning in to our website, are listening to the robocalls, checking their emails. So we're doing lots of blasts out to our families as we speak. And I know our face liaisons are out every week at when we're passing out food. They've been passing out thousands of flyers. And again, we're having lots of parent forums and then the 3-day registration fair. So we've been peppering the community and our families with the information.
Great.
Okay, well, Dr. McNulty, thank you. Are there any last questions here for Dr. McNulty before we move on in the agenda?
Not a question, but just a comment. I love the enthusiasm of everybody that spoke. and just all the things that you're doing, and including staff and just encouragement, that sort of thing. It was great to hear it.
Thanks.
I,
They're very excited.
yeah, Justin, can I add a little bit to Rebecca's thing there? Yeah, because I wrote down that I love hearing from them frontline educators and management participation as well. But on the other side of it, and I don't know if we can do this or if there's a way to do it, but each part of the school, how it's broken up, has different student councils. Is there a way we can hear from the student councils, whether it be an executive session so they don't have to be into the public, or is there a way we could hear from the students?
Yeah, I think that once we get school back up and running here in the fall, we certainly can set up a forum so that you can have a conversation with them. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean,
I know you guys are talking about perhaps coming for a visit, so that might also be a good opportunity to meet with some students.
Yeah, because their view is extremely important. So
I agree. Yep, totally agree.
Thank you.
I think that's a great idea, Paul. And I know Courtney is working with Dr. McNulty on pulling together a field trip, so to speak, for the board. So up to Gary, and so we'll work on that.
We welcome you guys. That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be great. Well, so we do have more things to get to today on the agenda, so I do want to keep moving. We have an update of the School Improvement Fund plan. This relates back to some legislation that Senator Melton worked on a couple sessions ago that put us in a position to be able to invest in the buildings and maintenance of the schools, and with the new federal dollars that have been flowing into the district, as you'll recall, there's really an opportunity to sort of reevaluate how that plan is structured and which funds we're going to use for what, and so we have an update for the plan today. I know we have Rob Tanner here to present. Rob?
Actually, Justin, I'm going to start. This is Eric.
Okay.
We got a cast of several. Yeah, cast of several. So I'll start out. I'm going to pass the baton to Nicole, who will pass it to Rob, and we'll pass it to Barry, and then Paige and myself. So as long
as we don't have to be quizzed on it afterwards, we'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, keep that in order. All right, and I'm going to go through what's in your packet. I'll give you a page number so we can stay together. I'm not going to go through it in great detail. You have all the information there. I'm just going to highlight some of the pieces of the plan that's in your packet. And I'm starting on page 4 of the School Improvement Fund, which is page 9 of your packet. And that's simply an introduction that says we have the School Improvement Fund. It started a year ago. We were here a year ago to present it. Just to reset and reframe, the plan was based on a lot of community input and what we saw for priorities in the condition of the building. Identified a whole lot of projects that could take place, did that community outreach, and put a prioritization plan together. The funding is through suspension of some common school loans. It's 4.5 years, and it's a little over $25 million over that 4.5 year time frame. The only thing different in this introduction from a year ago is the introduction, as Justin said, of federal stimulus dollars, specifically ESSER, that allows for a school corporation to spend ESSER dollars on capital improvements that are specific to a learning environment. And so we have a lot of that situation. And so we were able to move dollars out of the School Improvement Fund that we originally thought would be funded through School Improvement Fund at this time a year ago into ESSER funding. And what that did was free up School Improvement Fund revenue to bring in projects that were on the list a year ago, but because of limited resources and the demand was higher, that couldn't fit into the School Improvement Fund a year ago, but now can be brought in. So that's, we knew we'd be back today or sometime around now, a year ago, to say, here's what's changed, the circumstances changed, the conditions and the buildings changed, the availability of contractors and materials changed. We knew we'd be giving an update. The only thing that's really different is the introduction of stimulus dollars. On the next page, which is page 5 of the report, page 10 of the packet, just a quick recap of the 2021 school year, looking back 1 year, a quick overview of what projects were completed, what projects are started and in progress, and then what projects were in the School Improvement Fund that we thought would get started that didn't, a variety of reasons. Other projects got delayed, the scheduling got backed up, materials and supplies weren't readily available, contractors weren't readily available. The only other thing to highlight there, the footnotes, we can see an A and a B, funded by title or funded by ESSER. As we go forward, just keep in mind, we started some projects being funded by School Improvement Fund. ESSER came out mid-year, and we're in the process of moving those dollars out of School Improvement Fund into ESSER. We're continuing the project in ESSER. So it's not exactly a perfect crosswalk. We'll try to keep that as clear as we go, but it did happen mid-year, so it does kind of keep it messy. The next page, detailed funding changes, gives you a sense of the projects that were in the original School Improvement Fund version 1.0, and they're now are appropriate and applicable to be funding mostly out of ESSER, and then projects added to the School Improvement Fund. Again, these were projects on the original list that just didn't have enough funding to cover all of the projects, so we just went back to that list and in that same order brought those into the School Improvement Fund. The next section, going down, it's page 7 of the report, page 12 of the packet, the 4-year plan. If you recall, in version 1.0, we have 8 phases for the School Improvement Fund that have very distinct timelines. And then within those 8 phases were very specific projects. We've kept the format in place. We still have 8 phases with the same original timelines. What we've done is present today in this report the revised phase, the projects that would happen as a result of either moving projects out of ESSER, moving into School Improvement Fund, and a funding source or delays due to materials, contractors, or scheduling, and then compare that, be able to crosswalk it to what did we say a year ago. And so there's 3 types of projects there. The bold projects are projects that have been completed, italics are in progress, and then underlying projects that are added into the School Improvement Fund. So you can scroll through those. Each of the 8 phases are the same milestones, the same time frame, and you can see where we're at. And most of those underlying, which is what we're bringing in, come into the later phases. I would just say at this point, we'll see this again a year from now. We do quarterly updates to keep us on track and keep you updated. But I would anticipate, just like we said a year ago, there'll be changes due to situations on the ground and availability and scheduling. So we'll see some changes again in a year from now. I'm going to skip over what's on page 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 of the packet and jump down to page 24 of the packet and 25. And that's where we see a pink and green, a red and green capital projects table. This table and the table that comes right after it are connected. I've made a slight error here and apologize that it's labeled capital projects table. It's a School Improvement Fund capital projects table. I don't want to mislead anybody by saying this is comprehensive for all funding sources. What we're doing today is presenting just the School Improvement Fund. We want to keep the conversation in that context. So present these 2 tables just in the School Improvement Fund so we keep it clean, keep it clear. We will see in the next iteration of the table, the yes-no table, and then the funding dollars by building table. The next iteration, we will see all of the different funding sources layered in. But again, just because this conversation, the agenda is specific to School Improvement Fund, we kept the dollars and the capital projects just in School Improvement Fund projects. The yes-no table down the left-hand column, those are categories of projects that will be undertaken over those 8 phases, and across the top, just the buildings that we maintain. And then yes or no, just simple for that category, whatever row that is it, are we going to fund that and work on that as a project that'll be funded and undertaken out of School Improvement Fund or not. And just to further kind of highlight an example of that, the very first row, roofing, you see a whole lot of no's, and then there's a yes for West Side in the warehouse. If you look at 1.0, there was some yeses there. Bethune comes to mind. I think Beveridge had a roof. The next row, boiler, definitely Bethune. Beveridge had some boiler issues that were in there. Those projects are still going to be undertaken, just not in the School Improvement Fund. So that's That's why there's not a no. West side is the wonky one. That is a roof that will be funded out of ESSER, but it was started funding out of school improvement fund. And so that was a little strange to try to, it's actually both, so we showed it as a yes to recognize we did start out of it. If you go to the next really big spreadsheet, capital projects estimated cost by building, that starts on page 27 of the packet. Down the left-hand column, the exact same categories, just expanded to show the funding source, school improvement fund, ESSER, the stimulus funds, title, or other. Other could be the operations fund, it could be grants, it could be donations. And then the same buildings across the top. And what we're doing, and then color coding, the 8 phases correspond to those 8 time frames. If you scroll down through there, you can see what type of project is being funded. Again, this, for today's purpose, is just school improvement fund, and then color coding when that is estimated to occur. There are 2 other things I'm highlighting this large spreadsheet of all the projects by building and the dollars. I'm looking on the very first page of it, and it's pavement parking lots, and we see $1 million for West Side, and then $40,000 for all the other school buildings. We know the approximate cost; these are estimates. We know with some specificity West Side, because that's going first. But a couple of things just to remind you, they are estimates, and we don't have bids or even professional estimates on the cost by location. We kind of know in general what the cost in total is going to be. So, and this is a great example, we just straight line the dollars. So $40,000 is a placeholder for each of those buildings. It won't be exactly $40,000 as we get the bids and the quotes and we get closer to that. When that project kicks off, we'll replace those. I think it's going to be close, but you'll look at that and say, wow, how can you spend exactly the same amount in every building? We can't. And again, these are just placeholders. And then if you scroll to the very bottom of the document, you'll see the total by building. Again, estimates that will change. I think the proportionality will stay mostly the same. The biggest cost will accrue to West Side. It's the biggest building with the most roofing needs, which is the biggest ticket item. And then abandoned, which is demolition of those abandoned buildings. If you can't sell them first, then we're committed to demolishing them with the school improvement funds that are available. That's a natural pause before I hand the baton over to Nicole to talk about the schedule that we skipped over. But I'll ask if there's questions before we go on.
Eric, I have one question to start around. So this is the school improvement plan, but we now have more buckets of money that we can leverage for capital projects, including ESSER and some title dollars. When do you expect we'll be able to see the full capital plan? When can you bring that back to us? Yeah, our target date is September 1st. And that would be, if you look at that spreadsheet, the big one with the funding sources, that would have all the layers layered in. And in my head, we would have multiple versions of that. We would have what we see today, the school improvement fund only, ESSER only, title only, other only, and then a comprehensive that layers all of those in together. And so we could peel them apart and look at one individually. We can pull them back together, push them back together, and look at them collectively. And then once we put all that together and we think about that list from the very beginning of this process where we laid out all the needs for the district and then try to prioritize those based on, community input and school operational needs. Are there any projects that won't be funded? That's a great question. There's one more thing I would add to the analysis that we did. We put the list together, especially with the ESSER dollars. We went back, if you recall, those of us who've been here since the beginning, in 2018, we presented a facility master plan, and we called it that. And there were some components of that. It wasn't really a capital plan. It was more conditions of buildings. But I did go back and peel out all of the pieces of that document as well. So that's been brought into what we're the comprehensive plan. Just wanted to add that in. With that, I forgot the question. Tell me the question again. Will there be any projects on the list that we won't have covered?
I'll defer that with Rob and Barry's new. I will say there's always going to be capital needs, in any school district that will continue to evolve. I think
Hey, Eric, there's nothing we took off the list. There's nothing we took off the list.
Yeah, I think that all of the major things and everything that had been identified will be covered.
Okay.
That's not to say every single project imaginable, but it's everything that made the list.
Okay, well, that's great. Paul, I saw you had your hand up there.
Yeah. Eric, on page 10 of that report, it says project proposed and for completion but delayed. And the first one there is chairlift repair or replace at Belridge. And then a few of the other ones on down the line there have like, the ADA, to meet their standards. Why would we ever delay or not do those right away?
Yeah, great question. So to delay is to take that, so the chairlift works, so let's say that, and some of the ADA conditions are met, but at minimum standards. So the projects are to enhance it, to improve it, to bring it up to a level that everybody would want from minimal standards. And so
but why would we delay that?
Yeah,
I mean, we don't want an accident to happen from the chairlift or in any of the other facilities. I mean, it seems like those would be priorities rather than delays.
Sure.
Eric, if I may jump in, I would just say that when we started looking at the building needs, the very first priority was making the buildings themselves habitable. And when we started looking at the roofs, that was a serious concern. It was raining inside the buildings in a lot of places. And then also the temperature control and the amount of money, like we had originally the roof and the HVAC work spread out over the years more. But because of the seriousness of it, we had to move up several projects. And then when we were looking at the cost, we basically didn't have any more money to take on any other projects until we got a little further along with those. And so, like Eric was saying, that the ADA enhancements are needed. We were still good under the law. We were just hoping to make it better, but we felt like we needed to make the other buildings habitable first. Is kind of what our thinking was.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Mr. Joyce. And so as I'm sitting here in Miss Martin's office, it's raining inside the office, literally. I'm sitting here watching it roll down the wall. So we need to make sure that our buildings are able to open. I've had to close school twice since I've been here because of building issues. And certainly we want to address all the ADA issues, but we had to kind of prioritize the huge needs to get moving.
And please don't take this wrong. I love the new turf on football fields. I love new playgrounds. ADA and those issues have to come first. I'm sorry. Everything else is fixing the walls and the roof leaking on you have to come first.
Well, we're trying to do everything kind of in tandem so that we can also increase our enrollment as well. So we're trying to keep our eye on all the prizes. But yeah, I get it.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, on page 10 of the manager's report, I think it's in the same area. I'm trying to understand. I see the projects in progress, and there's the RFP for Lou Wallace demo. What and then there's the projects proposed for completion but delayed. What is it about the abatement and demolition that you've had to delay, and what's being delayed? What abatement and demos are being delayed?
Yeah, Rob, I'll let you.
Sure. We have a contractor that is going through and analyzing all of the hazardous materials in the building at Lou Wallace and documenting. Well, first off, they have to identify what they think is, then we have to have it tested. And then they go back and they're documenting what it is, what the hazard is, what the remedy would be, how much of that substance is there. And so they were a few weeks behind in getting us that report. We did just get that report on Friday. But what they didn't give us was the floor plans, which shows the exact locations. And we've been told we should get that by the beginning of next week. But again, they told us that we'd have the report two weeks prior. You know, they were 2 weeks late on that too. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that they'll get that to us. We will add that as an appendix to the RFP so that when we have bidders to demo the building, they know exactly what to bid on as far as the abatement concerns are.
So can you give us a sense as to when they are as to when we might determine when Lou Walls will be demoed?
The RFP will go out. It's ready to go. It's been written and ready. We're just waiting on that report. So as soon as we get that back, it will be out within, a week or so. Of course, that process takes a little while. So I think when we looked at it, we were hoping to have a contract in place by Eric, refresh my memory, but I want to say it was in August, late August.
Yeah, I'm looking for it now, but that sounds very close, if not exact.
Oh, I hesitate to say this, but because I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth. But is it realistic to expect that building will be down by the end of the year?
I don't know if it'll be done by the end of the year. I think there's a chance that could be, whether it's maybe
first quarter of next.
Yeah, I think that's a good projection.
Okay, I understand. I do have, I do understand that the mitigation of an old building when it comes to hazardous material is not a fast process. So understand it. Thank you.
Yeah. And Wes, I'm looking at, we did put together a timeline, and it is because of the abatement folks delayed. It takes us through the RFP, like Rob said, it's ready. As soon as we get the report, it could go out the first week of July, give time to response. We'll do a walkthrough, pre-bid, submission. I'm just looking at the milestones. We could have all of that by the end of August. And then the DUAB meeting in September, we'd have to approve it. I assume it's going to be a fairly large contract. Approve it, work to begin immediately thereafter. So I have no idea how long it takes to demo a building. First quarter seems reasonable. That's just my own layman's terms. But we can control everything up to when the work begins, and that can take us through the end of August.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair. Can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Senator Mullin.
All right. Well, more of a suggestion. I think we probably would need a separate, either a meeting, a public meeting, or a public document that's specifically about this plan. There's going to be a lot of questions. There are already a lot of questions on who still owns what property from the district to the school, from the school district to the city to a private entity. So I think we need some clarity around that publicly so folks will know who's responsible for what facilities. Next, when we move into projects like demolition, like what's going to take place with Wallace, and that's a huge undertaking, right? And it's something from a public safety perspective, one of the reasons why we did the fund legislatively. But are there plans to do community updates, talking to neighbors, letting them know how this how they will be impacted because of transportation routes, because of debris? Because I've seen projects like this take place in other communities and other areas, and folks want to know that once things are coming down, they're not going to be impacted environmentally and things like that. So I guess I want to express over communicating to the public about the facilities, who owns them, who's going to manage vegetation, who's going to manage board ups. Because I know there's maybe some still facilities that other entities own, that if there's a safety issue, that there's going to be dealt with. So I just want to urge some type of communication strategy with the public.
Yeah, totally agree. Great point. And the last round of property sales were more than a year ago, and then COVID hit, and pretty radio silent around that. So even it's just a good reminder to update people on that. And certainly we do, if that's part of the mitigation plan, communication plan for when we demo, it is disruptive. It's a net positive for the neighborhood and the community as a whole. In the moment, it may not feel that way because of all the work going on. So we do have a communication plan. We'll double down on that.
Will that be part of I think the communication plan, particularly as you're tearing down a building, makes a lot of sense. Is that part of the RFP process too, so that the contractor is on the hook in some way for managing some of that?
Well, I'll defer to Rob specifically. If not, we still have it, so we could add it if need be.
Yeah, I don't know if the communication process was part of the RFP, and I agree with you. Putting them on the hook for that is probably good, but also don't want to necessarily give that away to them, because I think it's probably incumbent upon the district to manage that communication plan anyway.
I agree. I think that while the contractor could help with giving the details about the perhaps the timeline and stuff, I think it's our responsibility as the district, because people know us in the district, to be able to give that information. I know I've already attended 2 meetings at the district with Councilman Dwight Williams to explain the process and where we are. But we absolutely, I agree, Mr. Melton, we need to continue to do more efforts in that venue.
Yeah, I think joint communication makes a lot of sense. You need to be making sure we're working closely in tandem with the contractors so that we're not surprised.
And demolition is definitely a major part of it, but I think it's important as the district continues to tell the story of the progress. Overall, school funding the school improvement fund, I'm sorry, should be told to the district, to the community, and say, hey, look, here's the progress at Westside. I know there's been great news coverage, but those other smaller projects that people may want to know about, I think that would be a good opportunity to get that report or document out there in the public domain.
Agree.
Other questions before we move on to Nicole?
I just have one comment, if I could.
Yeah, Tracy.
Not really question, but on the projects you mentioned that are split funded, I would just strongly encourage really good documentation on what's charged to the federal versus what's charged to the school improvement fund. So sometimes those can get messy, and an audit that can come back to haunt you. So just wanted to encourage that.
Yeah, thank you.
Eric, should we move to Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole, and so for everybody I skipped over a section, and Nicole's going to circle back. That is on page 19 of the packet, and it starts out school improvement fund plan. There's 8 separate tables, and they're different colors, just to give you the starting place. And Nicole, I'll hand it over to you. And then Nicole, after that, I'll just kind of tee everybody up. The next section in the packet is the ledger, the monthly ledger. So you roll into that. And then Rob and Barry, you're on deck for the quarterly update, which is a separate report.
Thank you. And this is just really to echo, kind of what's already been discussed, but this is the format of the previous schedule that was in our original plan with the 8 phases. We've added some new columns for new allocation for ESSER funds and title, The items that have been newly allocated have been approved already in those SR2 budgets. And then we've kind of added some revised cost in our actual cost column of the things that have been paid out of 1065. And in some cases, and Nathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong, some of the items that we have already paid for out of 1065 as it relates to possibly roofing and things like that, we can actually get reimbursed with ESSER now that we have that as a funding source. And still allocate those funds. So it won't be as split funded necessarily. We're just kind of waiting now that we have that additional funding source as an option. We can ask for reimbursement because those funds have been pre-approved. So each of these phases, you have the original items that were requested, and then we've kind of netted the items that have been moved from ESSER out of that original allocation amount. And then into a different category of the original cost, you'll see the new items that we've added in replacement of the ESSER funds that have alleviated the 1065 cost. So for example, if into phase 3, you'll see the football field, air conditioning, additional upgrades, things like that. So this is going to be a very fluid document. It's something that's always going to be kind of a work in progress as, things are seasonal and contracts allow, contractors have supplies, things like that. I think all of us have kind of become capital project managers in a way. We're calling people every day to make sure that we're staying on top of getting quotes and things like that and following policies and procedures. But this will be something that will be changing and will need to be updated on a regular basis. Anyone have any questions about this specific schedule?
I have a question on page 19. How do you choose to go from an estimate of 50,000 to fix the pavement, resurface the pavement at the West Side Leadership Academy to $1 million?
Sure, I think this is a great example of, something that in our original $25 million over 5 years, and that was the only funds that we had. The roofing projects obviously were a big part of that. So we knew we might have to do some patch repair at West Side. But, obviously a hope and dream is that the entire parking lot actually really needs to be milled and repaved. But at that time, we only had a small allocation towards paving. But now that we've been able to relieve some of those funds using ESSER funds, really the entire lot needs to be addressed. So, that was a perfect example of now that we're going to kind of get a bigger wish list of able to actually repair it in the full scope.
The only other question I had on that page was, this, of course, is phase 2, 2021 school year, which ends June 30, like tomorrow. The completion rates seem to be extremely low if this is where we want it to be. Can you address where we want to be and the 10% and the 0%, and we got one thing completed that's actually double the cost that we estimated?
Sure. So, I think a lot of these are based on, we now have Barry, so I'm sure Dr. McNulty will introduce him soon. But Barry has really, in the short time that he's been here, has really kind of spearheaded a lot of these and making sure that we're staying on track of getting the capital projects completed as well. But it's definitely a timing thing. So we're trying our best to get all of them started and quoted, making sure that we have accurate contracting quotes, following our advertising requirements, depending on whether it's federal funds or if it's the 1065. They have different advertising requirements for them as well. So that may be something that's extended through the summer and the rest of the school year, and those will have to be shifted and adjusted in time.
Is it possible to include an actually updated completion date rather than, 2021 school year?
Well, I think we can do our best with that, Mr. Joyce, but we are running into difficulties, as all the schools are, when I speak with the other superintendents, trying to find contractors and people that will actually even bid on some of the jobs, because they have so much work right now that we're having difficulty finding contractors, as all the schools are. So we're doing our best. Sometimes we think we're going to be able to get contractors and we get nobody. So we'll continue to push that, but just wanted to give you an update that they're finding contractors has been difficult.
Well, hopefully as soon as everybody gets back to work, we can have workers and we can get back to work and get them fully employed, and we can get these things done.
Amen.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question in regards to the RFP process, and how can we ensure that we're doing, I know public schools have to do things in an open fashion, which should provide that transparency, but how can we ensure that locals know about these RFPs, local contractors within the city of Gary, so they can take advantage of the opportunity to participate and provide that service? I'm sure that there are a lot of contractors out there that probably can provide whatever services is needed. Are we directly looking for or making sure that those that are approved to provide these services know about them that operate out of Gary?
Yeah, so we always submit them to the Gary Chamber, and they distribute them to their list, and then we certainly always send them out to the vendors that we know of in the community. We advertise it on our website, we advertise it in the newspaper, so absolutely.
I have a question about all the information that was just given to us. In sort of the theme of transparency, is this information on the website so somebody could get on the website and find out, you know, what projects they're working on, what the statuses of the projects, that sort of thing? Or is it just too much information to put out there?
So our school improvement plan is on the website, yes, so they can see where it is. And then as we're now updating it, the new updates will go on there. But yes, it is on our website. Welcome.
Great. Well, before we move to the update on the current plan and sort of the claims docket, I think it's appropriate that we first decide whether to approve the school improvement plan as presented. Eric, is there more that you want to present on that plan before we move into the next component?
No.
Okay. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the school improvement fund plan as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I would.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll second.
No, go ahead. I will move that we approve the Gary Community School Corporation improvement plan update.
Great. And Rebecca, I think I heard a second from you.
Yeah, I'll second. Thank you.
Give a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Yes. Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
Justin McAdam,
Yes.
5-0.
Right, the plan is adopted. With that, Eric, if you want to go ahead and move to the next part of the school improvement fund plan.
Yeah. And that's, I'll tee that up for Nicole. It's the quarter monthly, just the ledger. And then right after that, we'll move into the quarterly update.
So this is the May expenditures. There were only 2 items that needed to be approved that were paid for the 1065 funds.
Could you expand on that?
There was a Sherman-Williams paint supply, and then Martin Riley an architect fee. Those were the only 2 expenditures, approximately $10,000.
Any questions for Nicole regarding the full ledger and claims docket.
Now, do we need to accept that, Justin, or do they just need to present it?
We do need to approve that.
I'd make a recommendation that we approve the ledgers presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All right. Courtney, would you call the roll?
Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown, Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
Justin McAdam,
Yes.
5-0.
All right. The claims docket is approved. All right. Up next, the quarterly update.
In page, so the quarterly update, Rob Tanner has typically given us that, and he's here today, but also we have Barry O'Quinn with us today, first time. Page before Rob and Barry give that update, would you take a moment and introduce everyone to Barry?
Oh yeah, it's with great enthusiasm that I introduced Mr. Barry O'Quinn today. We have searched long and hard for a facilities director. We had an interim for a while. Mr. Barry O'Quinn is a longtime 30+ year resident, maybe longer, of Gary. He went to school, elementary, middle school, and high school in the Gary Community Schools. And then from there, he was the facilities director for the University of Chicago, where he managed 164 buildings there, and was recently going to retire from them. And we were able to lure him over to the Gary Community Schools so that he's very excited to be able to give back to his community. He's a wealth of knowledge and he's hit the ground running. So we're very excited that he's on board with us. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Barry O'Quinn.
Well, Mr. O'Quinn, thank you so much for joining us. Glad to have you.
Can we lose Rob and Barry?
I'm here.
Okay. Okay.
So here we go.
All right. Yeah, let's get started on the quarterly update.
Sure. The work for the last quarter is everything roofing for the most part. We have had some delays in the roofing because of material issues. But I think those have been resolved now, or at least that's what we're hoping. The Gary Career Community Center is all but, or the Gary Career Center is all but done. The roofing, there's some punch list items done. We did put some pictures of that. They did the outside. I mean, it really looks a lot better. And then obviously it's dry, so that's a good thing.
So there's Mr. O'Quinn. There's Mr. O'Quinn. Hi, Barry.
Hello.
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Barry O'Quinn. I've lived my entire life in Gary. I went through the school system, and as Paige said, I spent 31 years in facilities at the University of Chicago, and she called me up, and I thought, it's about time maybe I give something back to my community. I'm very excited. And I'm very eager to do what's right for this school system so these kids can go back and get, the education they're supposed to get. So yes, I've hit the ground running, and I pretty much will just keep running until we get all this done. So yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for giving back here. We're always glad to have local talent and get talented people involved in this effort. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Going on with the roofing, we have work being done at Bailey, at Bethune, and at Westside Leadership Academy. And also, I know that I mentioned the Gary Career Center being done. The beverage gym has also been replaced. So that has been completed. As far as the mechanical work, the HVAC work, all of the parts and pieces have been ordered. That's another fun story, trying to get those here. With everyone across the country trying to spend some money, that they've gotten from federal grants or whatever. And with COVID, it has been definitely a struggle. It looks like those are going to come in towards the end of the summer. We are doing all the piping or pump work that can possibly be done in the meantime, and masonry work. And we'll have more to update on you if in the future.
Courtney, this is Paul. Are we yet ready to talk about the paving project?
I believe that will be next, unless anyone has any questions on the current update that was just provided.
Does anybody have any questions? And this is Paul Joyce, by the way. Just had to step off for a minute. So I am taking over the meeting. It's maybe not a good thing, but I am here. Does anybody have any questions or follow-up? Barry, once again, welcome. We expect great things, nothing less. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the West Side, or the paving project, the West Side Leadership Academy. I know we have to authorize, you did an RFP for it, and put that out for bid. And there was a few questions that came up on it. Maybe if you want to just go ahead and go through the process, that'd be the first thing.
Barry and Nicole, if you guys want to explain the process, that would be great.
Sure. What happened is they put an RFP out. They invited bidders to bid. We had vendors that bid. And then I came on board. I looked at their bids. I wasn't happy with their bids because it wasn't apples to apples. So I invited all the vendors back out and personally walked them through the parking lot. They bid the same thing. We got the cost back, and that's the cost that is currently, I think we're asking to be approved. So in Northwest Indiana, pavement replacement goes in there from $7 to $13 a square foot. At the current cost on our low bidder, our cost would be about $8.50 a square foot. The reason it's $8.50 a square foot is we have some 2-inch placement, some 1.5 inch replacement, and we also have some areas of the parking area that has to be replaced with 4 inches because the sub base is totally gone and it's in the process of just turning to gravel. So that's the cost part of that. As far as doing the whole parking lot, it's roughly 85,000 square feet. And it's pretty much all in disrepair. It's hazardous to cars, it's hazardous to pedestrians. So could it have been, repaired somewhat, but it really does need to be replaced. And that's the correct thing to do. And I feel more than confident having rebid it and with the cost that we got, that we're getting the costs that are reasonable, let's say, to this region as far as getting the asphalt replaced in the parking lot.
I personally was impressed hearing you say 7 to 13. I actually did know that. I was. So they did come in good. How did you apply the rubric that was created toward this process, and how was the local vendor preference applied in this particular project? Because I did see that there was a Gary vendor that did submit an RFP that was probably in ball game with the other one.
Yeah, so we did ask all the local vendors. There's only 3 asphalt companies in the region, and we did ask all 3 of them to participate in the bid, and they did. We have done business with one of the other local vendors in the past. However, their bid did not come in at the lowest bid for this particular project, but we do work with them on quite a few other projects.
At the end of the day, after you did that, was this the most responsive bidder?
Absolutely. So the difference, let's say, between the Gary vendor and the vendor we chose was roughly $90,000. So yes, all 3 bids, when we look at them, they're comparative. They're within that realm of what I would say would be acceptable.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on the contract?
They've signed the contract. We have the contract, and I believe we're waiting for your approval, and we'll get the parking lot going.
Thank you. Do the board members have any discussion on it?
I want to, if I can just jump in and clarify one thing real quick here.
And you are,
I'm Courtney.
thank you. I
Sorry.
couldn't see your mouth moving, sorry.
On page 72, kind of the summary page that is ahead of the contract itself, under, let's see, under the fund, it says local operations fund. That was based on some prior conversations. This project actually was just approved in the school improvement fund updates that were just approved. So it is my understanding, and the Gary team can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding this will be paid out of the school improvement fund rather than local operations fund.
Correct.
That is correct.
Okay, with that, I know Justin is back. Justin, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks, Paul. All right, well, are there any more questions? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I would move that we authorize the Gary Community School Corporation to move forward with the contract with Boyd Asphalt for paving the West Side Leadership Academy, an amount of $735,938.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Courtney, would you call the roll?
Paul Joyce,
Yes.
Wes Bennett,
Yes.
Tracy Brown,
Yes.
Rebecca Kubacki,
Yes.
and Justin McAdam.
Yes.
5-0.
All right, contract is approved. Thank you very much, and glad to have you on board, Barry. Our next item is a report on the formative and summative assessment results. Dr. McNulty, are you going to lead off this?
I am.
All right.
So I know it's a very lengthy document, so I'm going to go over the highlights if that's okay. And then if we have more detailed questions, I certainly will address those if that's all right.
Please.
Okay. So I want to start by saying that we're pleased to present this report on behalf of the Gary Community Schools on our formative assessments for the school year. Gary Community Schools uses 2 different tests, one for the K through 8, and that is the iReady tests that we administered throughout the school year. And then for the high school, we use Edmentum because iReady does not go up to the high school grade levels. So this was implemented both in the fall and in the spring this school year. They were also implemented at home, so we need to keep that in mind because we were, as you know, on virtual learning. So in your packet that you have, you'll see that we were able to implement or to administer, the reading for, and Nathan's going to help me with this presentation, by the way, so I just want to say it up front. Kim Bradley is on vacation this week, just so you're aware. So the reading test scores for K through 8, and you can see how many students took the test for our baseline kind of there. And we were able to do a formative assessment in the spring, and then again, the fall, and then in the spring. And as you can see, just from the top page there on page 68, we had a 8% growth, which I think is great, across the grade levels in grades K through 8. As we dig a little bit deeper into the data, I want to talk about the math scores for K through 8. You'll see that we had in September 84% of our students taking the test, and then in May we had 94% of our students taking the test. We also had a 5% growth in math for the K through 8 grade levels. Let me get to the reading. When we look at reading for those same grade levels, again in the September versus May, we had a 6% increase in growth for those students. We went from 13% of our students reading at or above grade level to 19% of our students reading at above grade level. We know we need to do more with that. 19% is not okay. It hurts my heart as a mom, but we're still working on moving that needle. We are moving that needle, and growth is growth. So at least we're moving in the right direction. And as you heard the principal say, we are going to be continuing to work on that data-driven instruction as we move forward next school year. We did go from students below grade level at the elementary levels from 86% down to 80%. So again, We made progress towards those goals for our benchmarks. When we look at math, again, for the elementary levels, we went from 5% of students at or above grade level to 9.5% of our students at or above grade level. So a 4.5 or so increase in their grade level growth for this school year. Now, when we look at math, which went down across the nation, we know that math is hard to do virtually. Math is hard to do, period. But math is really hard to learn virtually, especially at the high school level when you're looking at algebra, geometry, trig, that type of stuff. So we did have a decrease in our math scores as you look through the data. And we will be talking later on in a few minutes about the interventions that we're putting into place as we move forward for next school year. Nathan, I know I'm talking fast. I'm going to let you chime in for a minute.
Yeah, I was to add the piece about the math, and overall emphasizing that we know we have progress to make in all areas, but we're pleased with progress in certain areas, and we'll plan to ramp those up with what we're going to talk about next on the agenda. But yes, math, it definitely followed the trend nationally and within our state of a substantial struggle during the pandemic with a decrease in math ability. So, but we're pleased to provide that to you next.
So you'll see for our 9th and 10th graders that were below grade level in reading, we went from 72% to 65%. And then in math, we went from students at or above grade level from 40% to 31%. So we had a decrease actually by 9%. And again, we assess that, or we attribute that to it's very difficult to learn math virtually, assessment fatigue, e-learning fatigue. And we need more students taking the test in person next year as opposed to at home. So let's see, that's kind of the highlights of our assessment as we go through the school year. We did not meet our 10% growth as we had hoped to do, but again, we made these benchmarks prior to COVID, not knowing that we were going to be out for a year and a half, but we are happy that we still made growth, and we're working hard to make sure that we hit those next school year as we move forward. The Edmentum assessment for reading in grades 9 through 10, we had a 7.4% increase. The iReady for math for grades 3 through 8, we had a 4.5% increase. The Edmentum for math, we had an 8.8% decrease. Let's see, make sure I hit the highlights for you guys. Any questions until I get into the analysis and where we're moving forward on that data point so far?
Well, Dr. McNulty, one question I have.
Yeah.
As I look at the data, especially in the reading data for your elementary kids,
Sure.
but you see it in math too. There's the highest notches in kindergarten. Your kids actually come in the best shape in kindergarten, and then there seems to be a drop off, certainly in the middle elementary grades, and in reading that picks up later, but in math that they don't really pick up as much. What do you attribute that to? Why does that happen? And how do we tackle it?
Well, we think there's several things that are happening within the district. One is our math curriculum is very outdated, which is why we're going to be adopting a new one next year. Also, we have a very mobile, transient population. So, for example, even since April of this past school year, we've had about 250 of our students who have moved internally from school to school as we're tracking those numbers, which is a lot. And so we need to do better and make sure that if student X is at Williams Elementary School in 3rd grade and she moves across town and goes to the next school, that they're teaching exactly on the same pace with those curriculum maps, because I don't think that's always been the case, because then there are gaps. And so we are having, that has been an aha moment, I think, for our principals as we've talked throughout this past week, that scope and sequence and those curriculum maps are crucial because we do have such a transient population. And again, that data, looking at that data every single week with your grade level bands so that you know where those kids are and assessing them on a regular basis is new to the district. So we are PDing our teachers and our principals to death on that. And Nathan, maybe you can chime in because you were here working with us last week.
Yeah, I agree. I think one piece that, I would brag on as well as our Bethune preschool. We are serving hundreds of kids that are ages 3 and 4. And so I think some of the positives that you see for kindergarten is that we're doing a good job of closing the gap to get kids ready to kindergarten. And then, as Dr. McNulty mentioned, making sure that curriculum alignment and training is in place so that our kindergarten teachers take that baton and run with it to continue those better practices. So I think there's some struggles in those numbers, but also some positives in those numbers too, of seeing a little bit stronger data at kindergarten. As you may recall, Bethune was one of the, or actually the first highly rated preschool that we had in Lake County, and that's a big draw for us of getting kids early and then getting them ready for kindergarten.
And you might have remember me mentioning last year, I think it was, Mr. McAdam, that we had 45 teaching openings when we started, and we didn't have one math teacher in the entire district. I'm proud to say at this point, we only have 8 teaching openings for the beginning of the school year at this point. So we are anticipating that we'll have all those positions filled by the time school starts, but 45 to 8 is a huge difference in a year's amount of time. But not to have one math teacher is tragic.
Yeah, oh, well, I appreciate that. I'm glad to see you guys are using data. I mean, that's the first step in the process, is you have to start to be able to see what the problem is, and then you'll start to diagnose it as you go from there. So I do understand it's a process, but it is striking to see those drop-offs as you move up in grade. So
right, we agree.
Other questions for Dr. McNulty?
Dr. McNulty, are we a year away from seeing new results or new data, or is there going to be something that coming in, say 3 months into the school year? When's the next set of data points that we're going to see if we're making progress?
Yeah, so we'll do it again in the fall, and then we'll do it again in the spring. So you'll see it again in about 3 more months. And we have implemented a data dashboard. So our teachers now know exactly how to look in their classroom and find out where those kiddos are in real time, as opposed to having to wait or having to have their principal come in and tell them. They can pull it up and see where Johnny is on a day-by-day basis based on their assessments. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about our strengths and then our strategies as we move forward. So obviously our strengths are, we feel like that overall as a district, we were able to change into the virtual world pretty quickly, and our teachers and everybody were very nimble and able to maneuver that. There was extreme disruption across the state, as you know, that with that being in place, but we did still distribute or see growth in several areas. And we felt like we were able to overcome a lot of those challenges. We do feel like the assessments were administered with integrity and the results are reliable. And we look forward to having those kiddos in person to be able to assess them in person as we move forward. Our weaknesses, obviously, we know that we're below our targeted goal that we had set for ourselves and that we need to improve. And we fully hold ourselves accountable to do that. We know that we need to have more of our students assessed, and we will be able to do that because they'll be in person in the next school year in the fall. So some of the interventions that we have in place, again, will be in person in fall, so the students will be here able to be accessed. We are looking to do double blocks of math and reading at the K-8 level for our students. As you have heard us talk about several times, and we're going to talk about a little bit longer here, is we are wanting to add an hour of instruction to our learning day for lots of reasons, to help with the instructional gaps as we see them. And then again, the data. We can't hammer that home enough that we're going to be using that with our teachers. We are going to be looking to do more intervention and instruction at the high school level. And do a literacy boot camp for our elementary students, high school math remediation, and student-driven data decisions. Nathan, is there anything you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think the the emphasis on the extended day as well, which it will be our next piece on the agenda, is going to be vital to not just addressing the pandemic and making sure that we address the data that was a result of the interruption, but also the data where we were pre-pandemic and getting to the level that we need to be. Is crucial. Dr. McNulty mentioned the curriculum as well. We got to take advantage of the time that we have the kids. I think one last piece that I would say is, not just the openings, but making sure we are supporting and also improving the current teaching staff that we have. So the PD that we're doing, but also we're utilizing this federal investment, our other existing dollars, to make sure that we have appropriate licensure, appropriate training, and then getting those right building leaders in place and getting them supported as well through mentorships and training. All of it a big package to move towards overall improvement.
I think the teacher collaboration piece is huge. Again, that is new to our district, in which all third grade teachers will be meeting, all second grade teachers will be meeting and discussing best practices for their grade level and making sure that that scope and sequence and that curriculum planning is done. Any questions for me or Nathan?
Questions for Dr. McNulty and Nathan? One thing in terms of participation, I know you touched on this a little bit. Pretty good in the elementary level, but certainly a drop off there in high school. One, what do you attribute that to? Why such a disparity in the elementary and high school participation? And then two, how do we improve that next year going forward?
Yeah, the high school students were the most reluctant also to come back to school when we opened up our schools for some reason. And so I'm not sure if some of those students were also home doing childcare for some of their younger siblings who didn't come back to school. But those were the students we were having more difficulty with accessing for testing. And so again, I attribute it to virtual learning fatigue, testing fatigue at the end of the school year. But we definitely struggled with that. So I think going forward, being in person is going to help greatly.
Okay. And then in terms of, you're with the data, can you touch a little bit on what, how I assume you're doing professional development, other things with your teachers to teach them how to use the data? What's that plan look like for you, and just kind of map out for us what your plan about teaching your teachers to use data looks like?
Yeah, great question. So previously, we only had 2 days of professional development built into our school calendar schedule. This coming school year, we have 4 days built into our school calendar for teachers. And in addition, we have Late Start Wednesday every Wednesday of the month. So they every Wednesday, they'll have a different PD. One will be on data, one's going to be on behavior management, et cetera, what the needs are for that building. But data is a huge push on what we're doing. We've already started that this summer. We've got teachers who are being paid to come in over the summer already, who are learning how, again, to use the dashboard and how to dive into that data within their classroom. And it's part of their evaluation as they move forward. So we've come up with several non-negotiables that Dr. McNulty has put into place, not only for her principals, but her teachers. And that's definitely the top one. They have to be able to recite and know the kids' data as you walk into that classroom. And the parents need to know the data, and the kids need to know the data so they know where they stand.
Yeah, that's a good question. Does the data get sent home to parents? I know in my district, I get reports for each of my children on a regular basis.
Yes. And so, yes, the answer is yes. And secondly, we need to have a more robust PTA at each school building. And so one of the initiatives that we're starting with some of our funds that we're receiving is we're going to open up a new PTA at every single building, because some of our buildings don't have one at all. And so we're going to be paying some of our parents who are interested to be able to come in so they can learn how to use this data dashboard and also become parent trainers, if you will. We are holding a community forum actually tomorrow and presenting a lot of this data and the data dashboard. So we'll be holding lots of forums for parents and using it forward. With Skyward, as you're aware, that's also available on their Skyward application too.
One more question on data, and then I'll pause. do you have people in your buildings or at the district level who, well, maybe more at the building level, who are really your data masters? Are there people who are, just immersed in this data all the time and then helping teachers draw insights from that? And what do those people do? What are they? Who are
Yeah.
they?
So we, to be honest with you, we only had a handful of them last year. So going forward again with some of our new funds, we're going to have 2 at each building, one for math and one for English. And so they are the people that are immersed in the data, and they're going around and meeting again with those teams so that they can help mentor those teachers, so that they can feel more comfortable. The one thing we keep saying to our teachers is don't be embarrassed if you don't understand how to use the data. Just tell us, we'll help you. This is supposed to be all of us learning together. I might know one component and you know one component, but let's learn together. The bottom line is, I don't want anybody to feel embarrassed just to say, I don't know how to do it, so they don't use it at all. That's not the game here, so.
Are those the instructional coaches that you referenced?
Yes, I'm sorry. Nathan, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I actually, Justin just set the segue. So thanks, Justin. Yeah, we're going from 3 instructional coaches to 9 so that we have 1 per building. And then as Dr. McNulty mentioned, we'll be having more additional experts amongst our teaching staff. But I'm super proud of the instructional coaches we were able to find. I think Dr. McNulty has made Gary a positive and attractive place to work. And so I think we're bringing in a lot of good talent and then taking advantage of the good talent we already have amongst our current teachers. But yeah, we'll have, because with data and PD, know that you have to do it regularly. And so the one and dones or 4 times a year, we have to be talking about data daily and doing it weekly as well. So I think those instructional coaches, I think with the data, Dr. McNulty has given us the charge of making sure that we're identifying how many kids, what grade level, what do we need to do to make the movements so that we can see, things like improving a grade on the overall accountability system so that everyone has a common goal of improving our student outcomes and that we own our data, know what it is, and then know how we can address it. So it definitely is a huge focus for us.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for.
Well, I think I heard Senator. I'm going to go Senator Melton, and then Wes will come back.
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Senator.
What percentage of our students are under an IEP? That would be the first question. The second part to that would be, what are we doing specifically for them to help them along with these assessments, post the assessments, with individual learning disabilities and complications in that area?
Great. Yeah, so Senator Melton, I serve as our Director of Special Populations, so I'd be glad to answer that one. We have roughly 15% of students that have IEPs, which is really spot on with the state average with number of children. One of the instructional coaches that we're hiring, I really could have said we're hiring 10 and not 9. We are hiring a special ed specific instructional coach to be working with our teachers. We also work with a technical assistance partner that DOE has recommended and has developed that relationship with out of IU Bloomington. And then also another party to make sure that we're having right supports in place at the right place at the right time. So making sure kids are in their gen ed classrooms and having strong supports there so that we can have the same outcome of a high quality high school education, graduation, CTE, and career programs as any other child would. So they are definitely a focus within the data, but we have unique supports that are in place for them as well.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Wes?
Yes, Dr. McNulty, I'm looking on page 135 of your report. These are, I think it looks like to me that though they are, it's a report on number of students per class, and I noticed, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Mr. Reese in Algebra 1, this is 9th grade at the West Side, period 2, he has 39 students, period 3, he has 40, period 5, he has 37. That seems to me to be a very large number. Is that a result of the lack of math teachers that are available?
You know, Wes, I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to check into that. I'm not sure if he's doing a double block there. I'd have to check into that for you, because that is a high number of students. We try to cap our students at 25, so I'll have to see if that was a teaching issue or if that's a 2 class sections.
And,
okay.
Dr. McNulty, I can, if you don't mind me jumping.
No, not at all.
One of the benefits, Wes, of the extended school day at the high school level is that if that's approved, we're going to be able to offer another class period. So right now we only offer 5, which we've talked to you all about the limitations at high school, that you have to bat 100%, pass every single class in order to graduate on time, which hardly any kid, should be held to that standard as perfection. Now with an extended day, we'll be able to offer 6. And with 6, even with our limited math numbers of, highly qualified math teachers, and then we're improving it, we now have 6 opportunities, which across the board has been able to reduce our class sizes at the high school level, because we have so many credit-bearing opportunities that are going to be able to be added because of that. So we are looking at the numbers for next year, and they do look better than what you're quoting now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that'll give, hopefully the end result will that will give Mr. Reese and his colleagues that are in Algebra 1 a lower teacher to student ratio and more attention, and hopefully the final result will be higher scores on math.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Some of the other pieces we put in place with our special ed supports are helping with that too. So we're making several tweaks that are overall going to address that cap issue.
We're doing much more co-teaching opportunities as well. So we will have special ed teachers partnering with regular ed teachers, so those students are more supported in their classroom setting.
Okay. Yeah, I look at Algebra 1 and 2 and or period, or all the algebra classes are really high numbers. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
It's an important topic, and I certainly don't want to cut off questions. Are there other questions or comments or concerns? Okay. Well, Dr. McNulty and we appreciate, and Nathan, we appreciate you presenting this today, and we look forward to seeing the results here in the fall.
Thank you.
All right. Well, so that moves us to our next topic, which is the extended school day. I know you've nodded to that a few times here. I know you're excited about it, so take it away.
Yes, we are very excited about this. This has been a labor of love, to be honest with you. We've been working a lot on this with our teachers, our parents, and the community. And we strongly feel that adding an hour to the day will help not only with our academic progress, but also is needed because we have lots of opportunities that we can present to our students that they are currently missing. So by adding an hour to the day, we are able to offer approximately 30 extra days. Am I saying that right? I looked through my notes here, I'm sorry. 30 extra days of instruction to our students, a school year, and over the life of the student who's attending Gary Community Schools, it's almost 2.5 years of extra schooling that affords them in their opportunities of learning. And so, we do feel like we have one of the shortest school days in the state of Indiana with some of the most neediest students. So we are strongly advocating to be able to afford these kids more time. We will be able to do those things like we've discussed, the double blocking of math and more intervention, double blocking of reading, that we're simply not able to do right now because of time constraints. We've had great conversations with the union. We've done several surveys that the union has requested that we do that came back favorable in support of the extended day. And we will be compensating the teachers for their time for that extra hour of the day. Any questions for me?
Well, and that compensation, I think if I read correctly in the report, it's about $10,000 per teacher.
Correct.
Per year. So
Correct.
pretty substantial. What is that as a pay raise, as a percentage? Do you know?
For newer staff, I mean, the $10,000, that's a proposed figure on their hourly rate. So we're wanting, teachers that have more experience are going to have naturally a higher rate. For a new staff member, it could be a range of 15 to 20% of an increase based upon that hour being added to their schedule. And we're making sure that we're doing it in a sustainable way. Yes, we're going to use ESSER funds because, one, we're required to use ESSER funds at a certain level for learning loss. But we know we can't just do this for a couple years and then peel it right back. So we've found a way to do it sustainably through title dollars. And then in all honesty, the historic investment that the state put in through the increase of tuition support, which we're very thankful to the legislature and the governor for, is going to be able to help us with that long-term sustainability plan of being able to offer it after ESSER dollars are done.
That was going to be one of my other questions. Make sure we weren't building a cliff in our teacher compensation, and appreciate your forward thinking on that.
Absolutely.
Other questions regarding the extended school day?
Is there, how does the opt-out program or opt-out option work in regards to attendance and transportation? I think that is noted on page 161 of the report.
Right. So as a standard, this is going to be extended school day for everyone. So transportation that is going to really not be an increase of cost because we're just shifting the time in which we bus kids in the afternoon. We do want to be cognizant, though, that there may be scenarios where, for example, at the high school level, if a kid has an internship that they need to be able to graduate and the kid is up to date on their credits, getting good grades, we can deal with that on a case-by-case basis. So we do want to be cognizant of that, but the strong majority and the expectation is that it's a longer school day for everyone, and the opt-out process is not going to be actively marketed to families. And we do think it'll be a benefit for families, the working parents, to be able to have supervision longer. But we talked about the credits earlier, but the internships too. But we will have some flexibility built in on a case-by-case basis. And if that were the case, you're going to have individual transportation, or we'd work with families as needed.
Is that 10,000 increase for all teachers, or is that just for a select few?
It's for all teachers.
Yeah, and I would mention, Senator Melton, we know that, we're going to have secretaries there longer. Paraprofessionals are going to have to be there longer. Other related staff members are going to be there longer because of the extended school day. So when we have worked on the budgeting, we've made sure that we can afford and account for not just teacher salaries, but the classified staff salaries too. So based upon our numbers, we'll be able to give a decent raise essentially to everyone that is needed for that longer period of time.
Are those outside of the teachers covered in the federal dollars as well, or is that just for the educators?
So are we using other dollars to pay for them, or are we covering those other employees?
No, you said the title dollars are being used as well to help fund the increase. Is that just for the teachers, or is that for everyone?
No, it can be for everyone. So in essence, title dollars really need to layer on top of our minimum expectations. So we're going to meet the minimum expectations of a school day with our local dollars. And then anything above those minimum expectations, which is what we're proposing here, can be funded with title. So right now, it's typical to offer a summer school with title. So what are the costs that are needed to run a summer school? You've got custodians, you've got nurses, you've got secretaries, in addition to teachers. So being able to offer it is above and beyond, and that's where title allowability kicks in. So yes, we'll be able to support more, and that's part of our sustainability plan is, flipping the model of what we currently do with Title I and doing it in this manner. And that's how it, along with the tuition support increase, is how we're going to be able to fund this long term.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. McNulty, can you can you give us a sense of those folks that completed your survey in regards to the stakeholder survey that was done about the extended school day? Could you give us a sense of those that disagreed, the reasons why that they strongly or disagreed with extending the school day?
I would say that from the comments we got, that some people wrote some comments and some didn't. Some were close to retirement and just didn't want to work longer. Some had second jobs. Some had more clarifying questions about sports. But again, by and large, most of them were in favor of it. And again, we had another discussion meeting yesterday with the union. And after we talked through some of those things, we were able to get those resolved. And so I think that even the ones that were more on the fence are more willing now to move forward with it. They just had questions. But we had a great conversation yesterday.
Did you survey your families at all?
We did. We sent out the survey to the families as well.
Did any of those folks was there anything negative from them, from the families, that would be affected?
No, we actually had a higher rate of yeses from the families than we did our teachers. But we had just I'd say a very small percentage that said no, but they didn't say why.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is Senator Brown. If I can jump in?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. So I have two questions, actually. Thanks, Ms. McNulty. When you said the parents, some said no, did you mean on the extending the day or the increased salary?
Extending the day.
Okay. So not on this. I didn't think so. Okay. And then my other question is, since this is such a significant increase, the pay raise, and going from the shortest day, how does the salaries going forward compare across the state?
Yeah, we'll still be about middle of the range going across the state. We can certainly do another cost comparison, but the last I looked, we were in the middle of the road.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
Chairman, I have just a quick question.
Yes, please.
The survey results that are included in the packet, then are these from the teacher survey results, or are these from the family survey?
These are from the teachers.
Okay.
Dr. McNulty, it includes everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. My error.
Oh, so this is both teachers and families?
Yeah, so we had one survey where the response, you could put what role you filled, whether you were a teacher, community member, parent, and so on. And so we actively marketed that on our Facebook pages. We communicated it internally via email to our own staff so that they were aware of how to fill it out. But yes, we did one survey, and this is the aggregate of all.
Okay, and do you have a feel for how many of the responses were from parents versus from teachers?
We do. The majority is from teachers and staff versus community and family members. We did get substantial participation from them, but the majority of the results that you see here are from staff members.
So what
question.
would the next step be then in terms of working with the community and communicating this to the families?
So I actually have a community forum set up for tomorrow, and we would continue to do lots of community forums, Facebook Live forums as well. And then our community meetings that we have that I have at the city council members meetings, robocalls, again, our registrations. We trying to engage with our community as much as we can.
Thank you.
What is the population size, I'm sorry, for the parents that was actually surveyed? What was that sample group?
Off the top of my head, I think we got roughly 300 responses, and it might have been 60% staff, 40% community. You know, those are off the top of my head, so I do apologize if they're slightly off, but we did get a decent response rate from the community at large. And then also Dr. McNulty has, you know, with COVID and our ability to host large forums prior to now has been limited or difficult, but we've been speaking to small groups at our community forums, the Ministerial Alliance, you know, our breakfast club meetings. Dr. Page has mentioned this on the radio ad nauseum to families. So we have definitely been communicating with the families. And at the end of the day, raising pay, keeping our teachers and improving our teachers, having more opportunities, better programs, definitely seems like a win-win. And then when we're talking about improving outcomes, you know, it's a good opportunity overall as we move forward.
We also have a monthly newsletter that goes out that we've been publishing in it as well.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to compliment the Gary team for proposing this. I think it's I know there's nothing to vote on here, but I'm really glad to see that they're trying to be proactive, and I think this will help move the needle. I think other schools need to go to this, and so I commend Dr. Manoli and her team for making this approach. I think it's very very appropriate.
Wes, I completely agree. I think that well said. This is a bold investment in the children of Gary, and I know it's not an easy thing to do, but it does seem like the right move, and one that certainly in light of the academic results and the performance that you reported on just before this, you know, is definitely needed for the district and for the children. So
yeah, and compliment the teachers too for being on board. It sounds like the vast majority is on board. The administrators and the teachers who have to implement it. Kudos to them as well.
Thank you. I'll pass that along.
All right. Well,
so actually, Chairman, before you jump, can we clarify why we're not taking a vote on this today?
Yeah, Courtney, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this particular action item, I think at this point in time, what we were wanting to do was to provide the board with transparency that this is the path that Gary Schools is going down. The board will actually have the ability to more officially vote on it in a couple of months when we have that collective bargaining agreement back. So we'll wait until we actually have that contract for us to officially vote on. So at this point, at this stage, we're really just kind of providing that head nod of, yes, we see where you're headed, and we're on board with where you are headed on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And as a reminder, this is part of the broader overall ESSER and federal funding plan, and so we will see that plan again here soon as they continue to flesh that out, and so again, opportunities to touch on these topics in the future. All right. Well, unless there are more comments, is there any new business to come before the board today? Okay, hearing none. Appreciate everyone's patience. I know we ran long today, but we did have a lot of important topics to cover, and Dr. Penulti and your team really appreciate your engagement with us today, and thank you for all the information you provided to us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Good
Look
luck
forward
as
to
you.
seeing you guys come to Gary. We'll look forward to the field trip.
Yeah, and good luck as you get ramped up to start school.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.